Good evening. It is 6 p.m., July the 18th, 2016. It's time to call this San Felipe del Rio Consolidated Independent School District Board of Trustees regular meeting to order. Ms. Haynes is out, so I'll ask Mr. Overfelt to call roll, please.
All right, Mr. Chavita?
Here.
Mr. Mesa?
Here.
Myself, present. Ms. Martinez-Lozano?
Present.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Here.
And Mr. Smith?
Present.
And Ms. Amy will be joining us later.
Okay. Let the record show that a quorum of the board members are present, that this meeting has been duly called, and notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. At this time, let us please stand for opening ceremonies. Just a note, as a community and a district, we mourn the loss of Brianna Murayda. I've asked Dr. Rios to say a few words.
Our district is in mourning. Our principals have lost an incredible colleague. Our teachers have lost an incredible leader. And more importantly, our students have lost a strong advocate. I know that we will fill a vacancy, but we will not be able to replace the loss of Ms. Murayda. We thank the Lord. We thank her parents, her sisters, and her daughter for sharing just such a wonderful gift with all our Del Rio community, and most especially our children. We ask for your thoughts and prayers for the Murayda family in this time, and we appreciate everything you have done and will do for her family and our district in the days to come. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We open our meeting with recognitions. First on the agenda is the recognition of the Education Service Center Region 15 Elementary Teacher of the Year, Ms. Kelly Lujan. Dr. Garza?
No, he'll call her. I'll do it.
Oh.
Ms. Garcia's out today. Madam President, members of the board, we are pleased to present to you the Region 15 Teacher of the Year. For the past 3 years, our school district has been proud to participate in representing Region 15 at the state competition for the State Teacher of the Year. This year, Kelly Lujan was selected as the Elementary Teacher of the Year and will be representing the district, but also very especially Chavita Elementary in their competition for Teacher of the Year. I'm going to ask her principal, Mr. Perez, to say a few words, and then hopefully we can take a few pictures.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rios. Madam President, Board, it's my privilege and honor to say a few words about Mrs. Lujan. I've worked with Mrs. Lujan for the past 4 years, and she's amazing. She has a connection with her kids. She has a relationship. She observes, and she can tell what they need, and if she can't tell right then and there, she researches it. And she's able to help everybody out. She knows the curriculum. She knows the instruction to the point where she can adjust right then and there. And it's amazing to see. It's magical. She forms a relationship with the community. She knows her parents, and she keeps in touch with them. And so it's my honor to present to you Mrs. Lujan, Teacher of the Year for the region.
I just want to say thank you so much. Again, I love teaching at Chavita Elementary. We consider it the best school in the universe. And part of it is because of the staff. Well, it's because the staff and the students are the best in the universe. And I'm very blessed to work with everybody there. Thank you very much for this recognition. Thank you.
Right at the end, Mr. Perez, yes. Ms. Lujan.
Can't go yet, we can't go yet. One more.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Mike.
Second on our agenda is the 2015-2016 Media Honor Roll, Dr. Carlos Rios.
Madam President, members of the board, the school district had the opportunity to nominate someone from the media to the TASB Media Honor Roll. We take great pride in our relationship with the News Herald, but more especially Chris Adams. I've asked Mr. Luna to put together just a brief overview of some of the presentations or some of the coverage that Mr. Adams has given us. So we're going to look at that briefly, and then I have a resolution to read. Whereas in each community, the public schools are shaped by that community to provide the most appropriate and effective education for the school children who attend those schools, and whereas public schools are dependent on the community support in countless ways, including support in setting goals for the education of our children and establishing successful volunteer and booster programs at the schools, for annual funding of operations, in periodic bond elections, and the election of qualified school board members, and whereas much of the community's knowledge and opinions about the public schools rely on the responsible reporting by local media representatives who decide which news to share with the community, how much attention will be focused on various issues, and what tone of the reporting will be. Therefore, now be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the San Felipe Del Rio Consolidated Independent School District places the name of Chris Adams on the statewide 2015-2016 Media Honor Roll, calling attention to the ongoing responsible and exemplary nature of reporting on this community's public schools. We express our appreciation for your balanced and accurate approach to sharing with this community both the challenges facing our schools and the successes achieved by the teachers and students. Your work has aided this community in focusing on the goal of providing the best public schools we can for every child who attends them. Thank you, sir.
Very good.
Do we have any citizens to be heard today, Betty? All right. Moving on to number 8, reports, Community and Student Engagement Report. Dr. Oscar Garcia. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Carlos Rios, and members of the board. I'd like to welcome here a presentation that I'm going to be discussing with you all regarding HB 5. So as I move along, in 2013, the 83rd legislature created a template for districts to use to determine where campuses are rated. This is an evaluation tool that is evidence-based activities at the campuses that truly show what is happening at each individual campus. So as I go over this PowerPoint, you will notice some campuses, and I'll review that very briefly with you, regarding where they rated themselves and how that process was rated. I provided you a copy with that handouts in there that I will specifically cover just one simple area to determine how those scale scores were determined. So HB5 is a school district evaluation of performance in community and student engagement tool. For this year, what we did is we evaluated each campus by using a set criteria rubric that was established by the districts across the state. So what is HB5? First of all, it's a Texas Educational Code 39.05.5. It's created a community and student engagement accountability rating, which provided standardized test scores, didn't provide a comprehensive view of all students in all learning and achieving. So what happened is here is that besides looking at those student scores, they wanted to find another way of determining how successful they were at the campuses. So what this Texas Education Code requires is that each district evaluate the district's performance and the performance of each campus in the district on community and student engagement. There were 8 factors. And in policy compliance, there was 1 factor. It requires every district to assign itself in each campus a rating of exemplary, recognized, acceptable, or unacceptable for both overall performance and each evaluation factor. Districts must submit these ratings to TA and make publicly available by August 8th of each year, 2015, 2016. So here are the factors that are going to be evaluated. First of all, we have fine arts, which is campus evaluation. What it is that's just the fine arts components of every campus. We have wellness and physical education, which is a simple campus evaluation of the fitness programs that are occurring at the campuses. We have community and parent involvement, which is basically what parents are saying about the campuses and how they're evaluating the campuses themselves through campus-based surveys that were sent out to each one of them. We also have 21st Workforce Development Program, which is their CATE, how they're functioning at the campuses. We have second language acquisition, which is usually their bilingual programs. We have digital learning acquisition programs, which are your star chart summaries based on how their technology is blended into the classroom. We also have dropout prevention strategies, which are campus evaluation based, which support how we're evaluating our students that are possibly dropping out. We also have education programs for GT students from K to 12. We'll see how we're supporting that program. And the last piece is compliance, whether we've completed all the compliance or components of that HB5 requirement. So here it is. This is how it stands. And I just want to kind of give you a brief introduction to this piece. So what I did is I provided in that blue binder a piece, just a definition of one component, which was fine arts. If you open it up, you'll be able to see that. And in that fine arts area for Lonnie Green Elementary, I use that as the example. I pulled up how we determined, if you notice carefully, whether they're exemplary, recognized, acceptable, or unacceptable. So what the state decided to do is they gave us a rubric to come up with a plan of how we evaluate each campus. So then what we did is we gave that survey to the campus. The campus has to provide an evidence-based activities that show truly what's happening at their campus. In other words, we just can't make up activities and rate ourselves with whatever we want. These activities are related to what's actually happening at the campuses. So in your little blue folder, I provided you Lonnie Green, and I'm going to go over that very, very quickly so you kind of have an idea how that was evaluated. So if you notice Lonnie Green, the fine arts section, they rated themselves exemplary. An overall rating, this is not the exact score rating, but this is the overall rating. But they rate themselves according by rubric. If it's exemplary, it's 1.3, recognized 1.5 through 2.4, acceptable 2.5 through 3.4. And this is how it's determined through this rubric that I provided. This rubric actually supports what the evidence-based activities are occurring in the campus. So if you're looking at this carefully, for example, how they became a exemplary fine arts program, this particular district in your binder had, for example, music and education, like keyboard classes. They had exploratory band. They had choir participation. They had UIL district competition. So when you're looking at a rating, and that particular, for them to be rated as exemplary, you notice there are one highlighted yellow. That piece indicates that they have to have at least 3 of those components to be recognized at that level. So that's how each level in component was determined, and that's how these campuses were rated. So in essence, each campus had an evidence-based activity that was provided to our department, where we evaluated and double-check what actually occurred at the campus. So we're understanding with that. So let's move on. This is just an example. So before I just move on to the next slide, I just want you to know the big pieces are the blue-colored cells. If you notice that very carefully, anytime you see an exemplary, those cells indicate that that campus has done well at that particular level. So if we look at the fine arts, we're looking at the exemplary. We notice that blended academy, if you notice very carefully, is not applicable, because really, truly, they don't have a fine arts program established at this point. So, and that may be banned, that may be certain activities that are not listed there. So then we look at wellness and physical ed. You're looking at exemplary. If it's an exemplary campus, they were rated exemplary in that cell because of the activities. If there were 3 or more base activities, then they were rated at that level. So our concern is that we do not achieve any unacceptable levels, which are coded in red. Unfortunately, as you see the cells, you will not run across any red celled campus. So truly, this is how they were evaluated. This is all the departments, and this is how they came about. So my thing is for you just to understand that those evidence-based activities are all ongoing and always occurring throughout the school year. And as we progress along for next year's goals are to make sure that we improve on those goals or try to develop other goals that'll jump our recognized levels to the exemplary caliber. So this is a timeline that I provided you guys. So this is how it started, October all the way till July 2010, to July, which ended here recently, which was presented today, and then it'll be posted August 2017 as a requirement for public audience. These are the people that were part of that committee. If you notice carefully, Juan Nanez was the Foreign Arts Director back then. Rodolfo Valdez, Student Services Director, Wellness, Community and Parent Involvement with Michelle Smith back then when this started. 21st Century Workforce Development was Rogelio. Secondary Language was Sandra Hernandez, Bilingual ESL Director. Digital Learning was Abelardo Casillas, Chief Technology Officer. Dropout Prevention Strategies are Diana Aguirre, Special Ed. GT was Patty Brown, Senior Curriculum Coordinator, and Compliance was Jose Ibarra, Title I Coordinator. Remember, these lead experts were actually the experts that began the process in 2013 when it was first developed. These are the committee members, and of course, most of these may have changed. We have Dr. Garza, Chief Instruction Officer Secondary, Chief Instruction Officer Elementary, Aida Garcia. Principal Calderon was Brianna Moraira. Business representative was Tuana Belado. Teacher was Katie Billing. Teacher Buenavista was Damaris Ortega Ford. Teacher at Cardwell was Melinda Brijalda. Teacher at Ruben Chavira was Concepcion Gutierrez. And at Chavira Elementary was Marta Galindo, and the teacher at Lonnie Green was Elvia Estrada. Any questions from the board?
Mr. Mesa?
I'm glad to see that all the schools made it, and I'm glad that you provided the legend at the bottom, because normally the ratings that we're kind of used to is 1 to 5, 5 being the greatest. In this case, it's the reverse. The one with the lowest score is exemplary, and the one with the highest score is unacceptable.
Unacceptable, that's correct.
So I was trying to figure out, like, how did they come up with that score until I saw the very bottom, and you provided that information there. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
I'm glad we made it.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I'm just a little confused, just slightly. I need some clarity.
Sure, sir.
This is Lonnie Green's actual rating?
That's an actual Lonnie Green's actual rating to determine that exemplary level in the fine arts
So
category.
how does that, this shows 1.41 and this shows 1.
Yeah, if you notice carefully, let me go back to the slide. So we're looking at exemplary, and if you look at the activities, to score at that exemplary activity at a rating of a 1, and that this is a total overall different rubric. This is how we determine what exactly are the evidence-based activities. So when we're looking at this, actually, we're looking at only the factors of like, for example, the factors of how many campuses and what programs they've completed at their specific campus. So if you're looking at this carefully, I included exemplary 1 as students having the opportunity to participate in more than 3 fine arts activities outside their general arts curriculum. So what we did is we looked at that. We looked at their overall campus-specific programs. And if there were 3 or more, we rated them at that level, which was exemplary. So if you look at this carefully,
Sorry.
in the bottom.
Sorry, let me interrupt, sir. Were you looking at the first page, Mr. Smith?
I think I've figured this out myself, but this is the fine arts only.
Yes, sir.
And it's rated a 1, which is exemplary for Lonnie Green. And then you take and average that out to get the 1.41 at the.
That's correct.
Okay.
So if you look at the 1 on that rating, you get another 1 on rating where it says more than 6 performances conducted. Then we look at the rating where it says participate in 3 more campus district-based exhibitions. We divide that into that section, and it comes up with a 1.5.
Awesome, I figured, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you,
Sir,
sir.
on the acceptables, we're working on those, getting them up to.
Yes, ma'am. Right now, what we're going to do after we get all these evaluation pieces and those evidence-based strategies, our goals are to meet with the campus principals and hopefully establish more activities for each campus.
Because these are the ones that are acceptable are the middle school and high school for the community and parental involvement. That's correct?
That's correct. So hopefully we'll get more input of what they feel are beneficial services that we can provide to those students at the high school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I do have one question. I mean, it's just following what Ms. Diana just said, Ms. Gonzalez, about the acceptables being at the middle school and on up. In the committee, currently, we have one representative from the high school, and that's it. It might be important to kind of bring somebody in to weigh in on what might be helpful.
Yes, we'll be doing that for the next school year, coming up school year.
And the parental aides maybe too.
Yes, ma'am.
And lead experts. I know you did state that these were the people that were in place in 2014. What is the role of the lead expert? Are they the ones that actually create or help to create how we're going to be evaluated?
It was my understanding that back in 2013, those particular lead experts are the ones who developed the rubrics and the activities for that particular criteria.
Thank you. Very nice presentation, and overall, it does look really, really good. Keep working towards exemplary for all, of course.
Okay, thank you.
We can drink.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can I ask
Mr.
one
Smith
more?
has another question.
Sorry. I'm just trying to get my math to work, so I apologize. Chavira and Calderon appear to have the same, but they've got, it's not a big deal, but it's 1.27 versus 1.29. But they both got the same number of exemplary ratings and the same number of recognized ratings.
Yeah, Mr. Smith, just because they have an exemplary rating, it's not an absolute one. It could be a 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. And just because they have an exemplary, it's not an absolute number, it's a range. So therefore, when you add up the numbers within that range across, you're going to get variations in the points.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going by the example. It was good, so, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Excuse me. All right, going to the consent agenda. We do have, oh, sorry, and you're standing right in front of me. Facilities and Construction Report, Mr. Carrera.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Rios, members of the board. Before I get started on the presentation for the project update, I have another copy of the update for the timelines.
Sorry. I saw you standing there. You never have anybody helping you.
On this first slide that we have is the Cardwell restrooms. They are complete.
Great. Very good, very good.
Thank you.
And we have the Blended Academy. They have, our welders have done the canopies. The contractors did the archway, but our maintenance welders did the canopies. And then those are on the top left, or top right and the left are both of them. And then at the left is the new parking lot that they're fixing to lay there. And then the front is the new drive that they're going to have at Blended Academy. Those are the project timelines. The Gerardo Maldonado Career and Technical Education Center under construction. Of course, the top is the front view. The left is the parking lot to the left facing the front of the building, and then to the right is the right of the parking lot. And those are the timelines. Then the Student Performance Center Administration Building under construction. Of course, the top picture is what you see today is the front of the building. Then the left is, the lower left is the left side of the building. Then the right is the right side of the building. And if you have any questions?
Any questions? Mr. Overfeld? I wasn't sure if that meant yes or no, sorry.
The fence at the CT Center looks awesome. Are we gonna have something like that down at the Performance Center, or is it just gonna be kind of all open down there on the Martin side of?
The front, on the Martin side, it'll be open except between the edge of the building and Cody Wardlaw. There will be a similar fence to the one you saw at the CTE. And then on the opposite side, there will also be a small similar fence, but the front will be entirely open. The pictures don't show everything, but today they moved in the furniture. The landscape, at least in the front, is just about done. It's just a tremendous progress. The Blended Academy, it's also tremendous progress, and everything is right now scheduled to be able to be used this coming school year. So we're excited about the progress both at CT and at Blended.
Yeah, I know the Performance Center posted some night pictures on social media, and it just kind of took off and became a life of its own. I think people were really excited and impressed.
We asked Frontera Construction to light up the building for the 4th of July and keep it lit thereafter, and it's just been beautiful to drive by and maybe just park in front there at night and enjoy it. Yeah, it's nice.
Mr. Mesa?
Mr. Carrera, on the CTE building, I believe on the right-hand side upper picture, is that the side of the building?
Yes, sir. Down there.
So I see the walls are metal siding. Is it metal siding?
Yes, it is. Yes, sir.
Were those the original plans?
That's my understanding. I talked to the architect, and that is correct.
Because only the lower portion, if you go back to it, that's the front.
Right.
Go back to the picture that was there before. Okay, upper right-hand side.
Yes, that is correct.
We only have a small portion with the brick, and the rest is all siding.
Yes, sir.
Is that the way it's going to be on the other side as well?
Yes, sir.
And the rear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just, I didn't know if we had changed from the original, but when I saw it go up, I just never realized that it was metal siding. And the reason I asked that question is because we do have a lot of, welders and things of that sort that, to me, it seems like an exterior with metal would be more, I guess, dangerous in weather that is inclement. We do have an outside area, and I just don't know, if it's safe enough that I just pictured it as being, the regular brick from the rest of the building.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I think all the buildings look wonderful. The landscaping at the, I'm going to call it the PC, looks really does a lot for that building. Great work.
Thank you.
I do notice, though, I'm just going to, the handrails, did those come in?
Yes, we discussed that earlier, and they're more than 20% complete. If you look at the outside rails, then it would just be 20% complete. But really, there's only two more rails on the outside of the loading dock in the back, and then in the very front of the building. That would be it.
It's not the ones on the stairs, though.
Those are in already. That's why, that's probably just referring to the outside ones.
Okay. Great job, and thank you for taking care of our little ones at the Cardwell.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go on to the consent agenda. If okay with the board, I believe we were asked, I believe it was Mr. Smith that asked for F1 and 2 to have someone speak to.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to invite, I don't see Ida Gomez. Is she? Yeah, I'm going to ask Ida Gomez to come to the front. And we're going to discuss, if it's okay with the board, items F1 and F2. And I believe that there's some teachers that have some experiences. And if there's any questions, Ms. Ida Gomez will be answering them.
We'll take number 1 first, consideration to approve the purchase over $25,000 to Pearson in the amount of $312,500 for ILIT 2016 Texas Digital Courseware Reading Program.
Ida, do you have that presentation, just the matrix that shows the different programs for the reading? If you'll walk us through that one with particular attention to what ILIT and Success Maker will do, I think that'll answer a whole lot of the questions. So just briefly describe the Power Hour and how every one of those fits in there. And then we'll answer whatever questions remain unanswered.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. One of the things that we have done this year is to identify a need for a reading program. Well, along with the reading program, which we do not have district-wide, the need for a monitoring and intervention plan arose. Therefore, a very strategic plan that has been working, we've been working on it since about October, inviting teachers to go visit schools, having webinars, having consultants, different programs have been researched. One of the biggest components is a Power Hour at elementary. It's a 55-minute block where every student from grades 1st through 5th would receive very strategic interventions. There are 3 types of students that we deal with in education. A student who is on grade level or a little bit above grade level is considered a Tier 1 student. We do just regular interventions or accelerated instruction to keep that student progressing. Then we have a Tier 3 student who really needs very intense interventions, or they have a diagnosed reading problem, such as, or disability, such as dyslexia, something of that nature. The bulk of our students fall within this Tier 2. So what we developed was a Power Hour where, depending on the student's need, we have 4 different interventions to address their reading problem. So if a student is coming to you and they don't have any phonics knowledge or they need phonemic awareness intervention, the district is committed to purchasing TPRI. Those come from the state. Those are proven interventions that the state provides kinder, 1st, and 2nd grade kids. Our district, if you see under TPRI, has committed to also purchasing 3rd grade. So the kinder through second grade are free from the state. The third grade would cost us about $7,000, but every teacher in kinder through third grade would receive training on how to work with a student who just absolutely is at the lowest, needing phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, anything of that nature, blending, rhyming. Then you have a student who perhaps can do those things, but maybe they're just not reading enough words per minute. So the state tells us that at every grade level, a student should be reading a certain amount of words per minute. If they're not, we're proposing to purchase Read Naturally. Read Naturally is to help students build fluency levels. Just that. You're not helping with anything else at that point, it's just building fluency. Again, our teachers would be trained. Then you have the students who have their phonics, and they're pretty good with their words per minute, but they're still reading below grade level. We do not have a district-wide reading program to address those needs. We haven't had a district-wide reading program to address those needs. So we did research several, System 44, Read 180, Achieve 3000, Reading First. Like I said, we did visit, we did research, we had webinars, we included administrators, teachers, counselors, dyslexia therapists, just anybody that we could think of to build these different committees. The front runner was ILET. ILET is a Pearson product. It is geared towards helping students who are below 1 to 2 years, 3 years reading. It is a 5-day program where the students would get this intervention 5 days a week. We are proposing to purchase 40 licenses per 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade at every campus, identifying those students, training those teachers. We do have 2 teachers with us this evening that were able to pilot the program in May and in June. We were able to get some free licenses from the company so that we could actually work with students in elementary at Garfield, Lonnie Green, San Felipe Memorial, Delrell Middle School, and in the summer, during the summer school program, our high school, some of our high school students actually piloted the program. And then finally, our last intervention, once we have students go through all of those, is comprehension. We have students who are reading at grade level or right below grade level, but they still can't comprehend what they're reading. So we're proposing to purchase some reading comprehension kits that we did pilot during summer school. We do have a campus who has already used them, and we feel that this would give us a very solid solution, helping any student with an identified need. I can tell you, school board, that in the past, when you worked with a group of students, you pulled 4 or 5 students and you worked with an intervention. Not necessarily the intervention the student needed, because we didn't have a program that was very structured as the one you're seeing in front of you. For each one of these, teachers would be trained. So for instance, a 3rd grade teacher would probably not be trained in all of these at first. That 3rd grade teacher would become maybe an ILET teacher, maybe a TPRI teacher, perhaps a Read Naturally teacher, perhaps just work with the students needing the comprehension kit. I know at the Finance Committee, Mr. Smith had asked to possibly speak to a couple of teachers who had piloted the program, and we did invite Ms. Michelle Gomez and Mr. Robert Norton to come speak to the board when you're ready.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I just, I think at a surface level, it sounds like a great program, but before I would throw my vote in, I wanted to hear some testimonial
Yes, sir.
on the trials, how they went.
Absolutely. Ms. Gomez?
Good evening. Although we were only able to pilot the program for about 4 weeks, we can already see its benefits. It is a TEKS-aligned program that still is able to differentiate for the students because they aren't on level. It's an amazing tool to have because it helps us see what level they need to be at. It sets up our guided instruction for us. It allows the students to read at their level while also learning skills on level, which prepares them for their state assessments. Jordan?
What sold me on this was that as soon as that student clicked submit for that assignment, I got the feedback immediately. So I was able to go in there and look at what they wrote, look at how they answered, maybe try to figure out how they were thinking, and send that assignment back to them with comments attached to it. If I saw that they were still struggling, I could pull that student aside, like Ms. Gomez mentioned for the small groups, and it was just really good in that regard. What I also liked about that is that the planning component was very easy, very evident. Everything was there for us. All we had to do was go in there and familiarize ourselves with that lesson, and it was ready to roll out to our students. Ease of use for the student, they see 4 buttons: assignments, journals, resources, and like one of it. So not only are they reading on their own, they're reading things that are at their level, and then they're able to go in there and write like in their journal. And what I like about that is they have that privacy to write their thoughts, but I can always come back later and look at what they wrote. And kind of use that as a critique, use that to help them find their voice as they're starting to learn this language and the content. So the feedback was easy for student, teacher, and aside from being like a reading program, it's good for the writing also. It was awesome. I really enjoyed it. And my students did too.
And when we say it covers all components, it does. All components. They read, they write, they listen, they speak. It has tools to help them on their own. It has tools to help us keep them engaged. Everything, it's there. It's an excellent, excellent program, and the kids liked it. They were there, they would do it. I'm sure you're thinking, well, if they're off task, how do we, because we control that. We send them what they need to see. If somebody is off task, we can send them a little note, and it pops up on their screen only. You know, so it really is an outstanding program.
I did some research on this too, and listening to you. It's very, very great program, I think. We need it. The students and the teachers are going to benefit from it extremely. Also, they're going to be able to read, and you know, reading, you become a better writer too. The more you read, the better you write. So I'm all for it.
Mr. Mesa has a question.
Both of you at the high school, right? Mr. Norton? No,
No, sir, I teach at the middle school.
at the middle school. Okay, you're high school?
Middle school.
Middle school? Okay. Do we have anybody from the elementary? And the reason I ask is because I'm always concerned with alternative certified teachers that don't have the experience for phonics and so forth. And I guess I have a question for you, Ms. Gomez.
Yes, sir.
Is when we adopted the majority of instructional materials, what company was that from in the elementary? Do you know?
I don't. Perhaps Ms. Brown might be able to answer that. Pearson.
Pearson?
Yes.
Okay. I'm fine, because normally we would adopt, let's say, textbooks with one company and then resources from another, and it didn't make any sense because it's almost, there's not the continuity that you expect with the same company. So I'm glad to see that part. I do know that we have lots of struggling readers, and something needs to be put in place. I'm glad that it's the same company that is, going through the elementary grades, because that's where the concern is, the majority of readers, and
Consistency.
to catch them early and so forth. So
Yes, sir.
thank you all for giving us the information, unless anybody else has questions.
Mr. Overfelt has a question, I believe.
I have several. So y'all were at the middle school there, and we're speaking to the ILET stuff, right? Right now is what they're talking. What
That
they
is
were talking
correct.
about?
The ILET is what's on the agenda for
Okay,
tonight.
so and it's going to be aimed at elementary, and they're correct according to what's being presented there on that screen there.
Yes.
Are there any elementary teachers here this evening that piloted this thing as well?
Not this evening. We did have Isa Duenas, and we did have Mrs. Chavez at Lonnie Green. What we felt, Mr. Overfelt, was that in elementary, teachers I'm not going to say they all know how to teach reading, but they're a lot more fluent with it. At secondary, the concern, and you'll see on one of my previous slides at the very beginning, that, we talk about why did we even look for anything? Well, the reason that we did is because we had teachers tell us they don't know how to teach reading. They're in 8th grade, students don't know how to read, and they are not teachers who know how to teach reading. Therefore, we went out researching a product that would walk them through it. It's scripted. So to answer, no, sir, I don't have anybody from elementary here. These were the 2 teachers that were available for this evening.
What time of the year did y'all pilot this? Before STAR or after?
It was actually 2 weeks before our second administration.
Okay, so towards the end of the year.
Yes.
Um,
After, yes.
okay. So the $312,000 is going to include the components for middle school as well, or just elementary?
For all of them. For elementary, it's going to be 120 licenses at each campus. For 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, it's 100 licenses per grade level. And for blended, it's all 75 licenses. We anticipate 75 students possibly reading below grade level.
Okay. You talked there on one of the, I guess it was the last one that was up there, about the 55-minute power hour at the elementary levels.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to be that person. What gets pushed aside for the 55 minutes? History, art, science, GT?
It's a very good question.
Because I know, because I live with a teacher at the elementary level, how much is crammed into those hours and stuff. So
Looking
what
for
are we
the slide.
sacrificing for 55 minutes? And I don't know if you want to answer that or if she wants to
I'll
answer that.
answer
I can
it.
answer.
We're sacrificing absolutely nothing because, first of all, when the students are in their power hour, the ones that need assistance with reading will be engaged in one of these 5 programs she described. But if you're a GT student, you will go to a GT power hour. And so instead of seeing your GT teacher 2 or 3 times a week, you can see that teacher 5 times a week during the same time every day. If you're a student that receives services through the dyslexia program, instead of receiving services 3 days out of the week, you're going to receive services 5 days out of the week. And the most important thing about losing absolutely no time is that if I'm a dyslexia student, I get pulled out 3 times out of the week. But my class goes on. So I might have been getting dyslexia services, but I'm also missing that history or that science. But now, everybody at that grade level gets those power hour services, whether it's resource, whether it's dyslexia, whether it's GT, whether it's just advanced support. And then when I go back to my classroom for the core curriculum, I'm not missing any of it. So I would say that now we're adding to it, and it's all good instruction.
I hope so, because I know how it ends up working. Stuff gets pushed to the side, particularly history and sciences and stuff of that, because of that state exam there. And then lastly, based on the chart that was up there with ILIT and Success Maker and TPRI or whatever it was there,
Yes, sir.
why so many programs? And there doesn't adding all these different programs, which the teachers are going to have to be trained on based on what's there. At what point does this start to become counterproductive?
Well, here's what I'd like to share with everyone. We have, as Mr. Mesa has pointed out on numerous occasions, we have struggling readers at all levels. And one of the reasons that a district of our caliber falls short on really being out there with the highest achieving districts is because we haven't had these resources in place. And I think that as we move forward and we end up having more Tier 1 students than we do Tier 2 students, because right now we have so many of them, we will be able to cut back on some of the services. But we have too many students that haven't had the appropriate support in their reading. I think that this program entirely addresses what we haven't provided in the past. I don't think it's too little, and I certainly don't think it's too much. I think that the time that Ms. Gomez and everyone took to develop it was very appropriate, and this is what our district needs right now. This is what it has needed for the last 10 years. And I'm excited to see the results after 1, 2, and 3 years of implementation.
Very good. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, just quickly,
Mr. Smith?
thank you. I mean, I had asked, this was a fair amount of cash. I know it's not local. It's coming from these IMA funds versus local funds. But I want, before I got my endorsement involved in this kind of a spend, I wanted to get some testimonial. So thank you I know that takes a lot out of your evening to come up here and do that. So thank you very much for that.
Mr. Chavita also had something to say.
Thank you, ma'am. All my experience have been in the secondary. I started teaching at the elementary for just 2 years, and the rest of it was secondary. But I think Dr. Rios kind of partially answered one of my questions that I had. But before I ask the question, it's been said that from 0 to 3, you learn to read. From 3 on, you read to learn. And if you don't know how to read, you might as well check it in. So I'm glad that we're having this reading programs at all levels. And the reason that I started my question by stating that I was at the high school level, because when I was at the high school as an assistant principal, the biggest problems that I had was students that caused problem because they didn't know how to read. They shied away, and they found ways of getting out of the classroom by causing problems. And it goes to what Mr. Overfeld was saying, that we got too many programs. And with the 8th graders or middle school, we have the program, and I guess it still exists, because what's happening in the elementary? Why are we not teaching the kids? And here we see the problem still existing. And it's got to be something. Maybe it's just the way things work, that maybe some kids fall by the wayside through the cracks from 1st through the 8th grade. And I'm glad that we're having this program. And but my question is, what's happening? What do you think? Why is it that we're still, even at the high school, we're still having problems with the reading?
Mr. Chavita, if I could answer that by saying that I believe we have not been able to address the needs of every student with the appropriate intervention for that child. So if I have 22 students and 5 of them are struggling, I pull a group of 5 for my 30-minute guided instruction group, and I might touch on one of those. But if each one of those 5 students needed something different, I didn't really address their needs. I'm doing something, don't get me wrong. Our teachers are working very, very hard. I just don't know that we had the appropriate tools. So if I needed to build my fluency and I have a group working on comprehension, I'm not there yet. So to me, I equate it like going to a gym and asking everybody to start, running 5 miles on the treadmill. I'm not there yet. Can I start walking? Can I have a plan? And I think this is what it does. Every student in every class, all 127 second graders, at one point in time during their power hour will be under one of those categories every day.
Yeah, I can see that. And going back to what Dr. Rios was saying, that we needed the program 10 years. Well, we needed it 20 years ago. So the guys in high school didn't have the program.
Right.
So they missed out. And I'm glad that we have this program at all levels so that we can address it, the need that it's, I'd much rather see the kid spend a lot of time reading and knowing how to read so that they can analyze what they're reading, and that applies to math, and be able to figure out what they're asking them or try to tell them when the formulas are presented to them and all that type of thing. So they worry problem that it's so hard for them to analyze when they're being asked, whether it be business or whether it be math or chemistry or whatever the case would be. So again, I'm glad we're having that program, and I'm glad that the intervention is being done at the middle school because they really need it. I mean, I see kids, my grandkids that are in secondary now, they're having problems reading. And maybe maybe it's our culture. They spend a lot of time behind those little pads and
Yes.
they don't do enough reading. But thank you, and I'm glad we're doing that, Dr. Rios.
Mr. Mesa?
Madam President, I had another item on the consent that I have questions on, and that's G2. The demographer.
I'll ask Ms. Valdez to step up and answer.
Can we go on to the second
Oh.
piece of, which is it's closely related, so
She already presented on that covered,
the Success Maker Next Generation
yeah,
licenses?
that's the one right next to it up there.
okay.
So
I have a question.
Oh,
May
okay,
I
I'm sorry.
ask a question?
All right, you're the president.
Just have one question. Annual fees associated with this, I'm going to assume? Or is this a one-time, that's it, you own it?
Two different ones. The ILIT program
Mm-hmm.
is an individual license. It's $160 per license with a $40 maintenance fee. Year 2, we would be paying the $40 maintenance fee.
So just maintenance?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
then the second one?
And then Success Maker, those are concurrent licenses. If you notice, we're only buying 45 to serve all kinder, first, and second grade students, because that license can be used as many times as you can fit them into the computer lab. So with appropriate scheduling, my license is tagged on to the next 30 minutes, the next 30 minutes, and the next 30 minutes. Those are more expensive. They're $785, and there is a $185 maintenance fee for next year,
For each of the licenses?
for each of the for the 45 each ones.
However, can you just clarify that the combined maintenance fee for those two is still less than the program it's replacing?
Yes. So if you'll see year 1, the cost is $303,000 for the ILIT for elementary and secondary for year 1, but year 2 it's $60,600. For the Success Maker, it's $307 for year 1 and $58,000 for year 2. And Dr. Rios is correct. We are also replacing a couple of programs that we have not been able to get the results that we want. And we have Study Island that will be replaced. That's for $68,000. And ice stations, we are currently paying $38,000. We will no longer be replacing that one either.
Thank you. Mr. Mesa wanted to, was it G2?
G2.
And that's consideration to approve the contract over $5,000 and purchase order over $25,000 to Templeton Demographics in the amount of $28,000 for demographic services.
And I know Yanagani already answered some of my questions, but I still, I feel that the same person was here not too long ago, started 2014, and yet missed a big subdivision that developed on Agarita. And I just can't see, for us to be fiscal responsible in paying $28,000 again, when I think he made a major mistake in not finding out a major subdivision that is going up on Agarita. And I just can't see myself, again, bringing the same person and doing, making the same mistakes. That's my opinion. But if you could answer some of my questions.
Sure. The question I heard was about him missing, Mr. Templeton, missing the development of on Agarita Street. And first, we were informed by the developer that that development wasn't incorporated until after Mr. Templeton gathered his data. The second thing, and I certainly don't want to put the blame on anyone else, but Mr. Templeton, I believe, did a thorough review of the information that was available, and he definitely interviewed as many people as were available in the different entities, and his information will only be continued to be as good as the information that's provided to him. Now, I think that in this case, everybody provided to him the information that was available, and that was not incorporated at the time he collected the data, because it was a little bit more than, it was almost 2 years ago.
That is correct.
I believe he was thorough. I believe that the information that he shared with us allowed us to make some difficult decisions and make the best of those decisions. But again, that subdivision wasn't incorporated yet, and he is only as good as the information that here people within the community share with him.
Sir, what's the difference between what's...
Gonzalez?
I'm sorry, Madam President. May I speak?
Absolutely. Ms. Gonzalez.
I just went to a meeting where this guy was talking, Mr. Templeton. What's the difference between what he had to say then and what you want him to come up with now?
We're going to be forming the Citizens Committee that you all will be and have nominated community members for. The Citizens Committee is going to receive information on the development of 3 properties to the north to build the next elementary school. Depending on where we locate the elementary, there will be obviously rezoning that is involved, because a group of students will be going to that elementary, and they'll be pulled from other areas of town. And Mr. Templeton's study and projections and use of current data will be valuable in determining that rezoning. Now, that in itself is difficult, but we also have to consider the recommendations of the previous Citizens Committee, which indicated that they would like to see us go through a 6th grade, returning 6th grade to the elementary. And that involves a whole lot more studies, because for every site, he'll have to come up with a scenario of doing a K-6 setting, a K-5 setting, a pre-K-5 setting, and a pre-K-6 setting, so that the committee can make recommendations to this board as to what the best organization is going to be for elementary school, and then consider how the location impacts that grade configuration. So Mr. Templeton will have to come up with about 12 different scenarios in terms of grade configurations and the development of streets and transportation routes, so that we can make an informed recommendation to the board. And that is going to be the big part of this next study. So it's not so much going to be projecting the growth of the city as much as it's going to be helping us with the configurations. Although he'll obviously have some input into the projected growth to see where the students will be at the time we build the new elementary school.
I still have a question.
Mr. Mesa?
The second part of my question is, I know he started on 2014, but he presented to us a month away from 2015. He presented in November,
Yes, sir.
almost going into 2015, and yet no knowledge whatsoever from one of the main developers on the north side, which is Mr. Vaughn.
That is correct, sir. I called the developer today, and their response was that they recently, or within the last year, annexed that property, which is now called Agarita Hills, I believe. And that property leads, or that development, I'm sorry, leads into another development that was part of the demographic study, which was called Sage Hills 3. But she did mention that they just annexed that over a year ago. So that information was not part of the demographic study.
But was he not, I guess, adding to his final report when all this was going on?
Mr.
When was it annexed?
The developer communicated that the property was annexed within the last year. Mr. Templeton's demographic study was November of 2014.
A month away from 2015.
Right, and what was presented in 2015, I believe it was in April, was our rezoning plan. So that did not incorporate continuation of the demographic study. It was simply our rezoning plan, which was presented in 2015. But the developer did communicate that with me today.
You know, when we got the report and then they started developing, I was very dissatisfied that he was not updating, you know, his information because it wouldn't take long to find out what are Mr. Vaughn's plan to annex additional property. I don't think he talked to the key people in the areas of land development because, again, he's the main developer up on the north side. And he's done it for years. It used to be his dad. But we just need accurate information. And to me, this is my own opinion, that to pay an additional $28,000 again, whether it's 2 years or 1 year, is way too much for information that is, again, not up to date. That's my opinion. Thanks.
If I just may add to that, Mr. Mesa, when we started the demographic study, there was a list of either entities or developers that Mr. Templeton contacted, and they did contact me to verify that he was conducting a demographic study. So he did include the different developers in town, and he did include the city and the county. He included all the parties, and again, they did contact me to verify that he was working for this, or working on behalf of the school district.
Mr. Smith had a question or
Well,
comment?
just a quick question tied to how many, you know, we got, what is it, $28,000 we're asking to spend. How many man hours do you think Temple, do they have that in the bid? How many man hours they're going to invest in?
I'd have to review the bid. I know that at a minimum, we have the number of presentations and trips that he'll make down here, which is 4 different trips to present his findings and to participate with the different committees. Now, how many hours is he going to take for each one? We could find that out. We couldn't find it out here in the next 5 minutes. So
That's fine. So, Templeton, for my benefit, not knowing the history, Templeton is one from a list of groups that do this type of work, or they're preferred by TASB? Where do we get Templeton's reference from?
we, when we needed the services of a demographer 2.5 years ago, we looked at different demographers that were available, checked references. We did a RFQ,
We did a quote, just a
Quote.
comparison at that time.
and he was the best value for the district at the time. And because he has the historical data of the district already,
You got a baseline of investment already made, and he just had to add to that for this go-around.
yes, sir, and to bring somebody new that would start from scratch would be more expensive at this point. And granted, I'm saying that just based on the experience, but I do not have
That's fair.
any data to support that right now.
Okay, I guess there's a couple things that I'm trying to allude to. One is if to go choose somebody other than Templeton would be more expensive. And number 2 is if this was an absorbent, it sounds like an absorbent amount of man hours to do it if you were to take and try to do that task with your current resources inside the district. Is that feasible, not feasible?
It's not feasible at all, and 2, if we were to start from scratch with someone new that would have to collect the data, we in no way would be ready for September, when our committees will start meeting. So I would make an educated opinion that 1, it would be a lot more expensive because there's a lot more upfront work, and 2, the timeline would stretch beyond. I think Mr. Templeton took almost 4 months for his initial work when he was interviewing developers and inputting all the addresses into their software system.
And I think Mr. Mess's points are very valid. So at the start of the previous Templeton's work, he was provided, here's the contact of the city, the county, and here's the major developers. And then through time, we validated that he made those contacts, and he made his assessment based on the data that was provided.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chavita.
Dr. Rios, and I know from the onstart that it would have cost us more because of the information that needs to be gathered by anybody that comes in. How much money are we talking about? Approximately. And I know the time that it's going to take him to gather all this information, that it's in the computer now.
I'm sure I can have Ms. Valdez research the initial amount that we paid Mr. Templeton last year. I don't want to even guess at the amount that we paid him for the original work, and then I certainly would have to take more time to compare the scope of work from the first one to the second one. But I would venture to say that it was, I want to say mid-30s, Ms. Valdez, but I don't recall that.
The demographic study alone was 25,000, and then the rezoning, I believe, was another 7,000 to 8,000. But on page 2 of his, I guess his quote, or his quote, he includes demographic update is only 10,000. So I would venture to say if we went with a new company, we would probably be looking at the 25,000 or more.
And then the time that it would take to gather all the information. And is there anything that we can prevent another mistake or another not being able to see what, in talking to him, point out some of the things that he should have known?
We'll certainly,
before we, get into a contract with him again.
we would certainly sit down and review with him the issue of the Ayarita Hills so that he can, in the future, when he's talking to developers, ask, are there any other considerations that aren't solid in your plans? But I think that Ms. Valdez did verify that he talked to all the developers, but again, the information they provided is the information they provided, and he did his due diligence. But we'll certainly have that conversation to see if we can find out how we can get more accurate information from the developers and anyone else. Everything else that he provided seemed to have been very accurate, and as difficult as it was, we were able to go through a very difficult process of rezoning that in the end worked. It's still difficult, and I don't expect anybody to say it worked because it was such a difficult process, but we have well-balanced elementary schools.
I was very impressed with him, with the process that he went through and the explanations that was given to us. So I think that they leave us no option but to go on and continue with them at this point and pointing out some of the problems that we saw and how to prevent them.
Mr. Smith?
I don't know if this helps, hinders, or what, just a question. The miss that was made by Templeton, what are we talking about? Size appropriate? Are we talking about just that one street with, what is it, 14 lots on that one street? Is that what we're talking about,
Yes,
the
sir.
size appropriate? Okay.
Yes, sir, it was that one street right off the water towers that is, I think, has approximately 17, 16 lots.
Right, that is correct.
One additional question. The allotted time that we're giving ourselves to gather this information, to be better prepared for the committee does not afford us the opportunity to go out and do another, I don't know, what was it you said, an RFQ or
Or
RFP, or-
solicit 3 different bids.
we don't have enough time.
Well, and I would say that's just more out of convenience to adhering to our own timeline. We could always push back meeting with the Citizens Committee indefinitely, which I certainly would be opposed to that, but I'm not the one that decides. But all it does is push the timeline 2-3 months down the road. But I will share with the board that based on the recommendations of the committee, there is a certain timeline that we have to follow. If the recommendation was to build an elementary school, for example, then we have to consider having the information and time to decide how we're going to fund that elementary school. And if we were to look for optional funding, you can only do it in May and in November. So we can't delay those discussions unless we're not serious about doing it. And I think that every indication I've gotten from the board is that we need to move forward and at least have that information available. I don't think there's going to be any savings involved in going with a different demographer. I think that we would buy ourselves some additional work and a loss of time. I don't disagree that there was 14 lots that were missed in the study, but I also do not believe that it was Mr. Templeton's fault for not being thorough enough. I believe he acted on the information that was provided to him.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we wish to pull any of the items from the consent to vote separately?
I'd like to have G2, just.
G2? Any other? And then we will also table number, it's F6, consideration to approve the purchase order over $25,000 to NBF DMW in the amount of $36,000 plus for the purchase of furniture for the Blended Academy. We're tabling that to the next meeting. So at this time, we will pull G2.
Just on,
Absolutely.
by tabling that, are we still going to have the ability to put furniture in, or we have stuff that can be in there until this is settled?
We have furniture that we could put in there to begin the year. We're not going to begin with all 200 students, so we'll be able to be just fine.
Okay.
Question. Mr. Chavira, did you have a question?
Yes, we want to pull off which ones?
It
table
looks
them
like we're going to table F6, the furniture for the Blended Academy. And Dr. Rios was just stating that we have enough furniture to begin the year off with to allow us to table this. And we will
Madam
be...
Chairman,
Yes,
before we continue, you know, I've been in the sport for 5 years. Every time somebody has a posted to it, we table it. I mean, our kids cannot wait. They get older every year. You know, we've been tabling things for so long, and we keep on saying that we're moving too fast and this type of thing. I don't think we should. I think we need to go on forward and get this information.
We didn't discuss whether we were going to table it. I believe it was administration asking for us to table it. Maybe I misspoke.
Well, I think that if we table this item until August 1st, and we're going to ask the board to have a special call meeting August 1st to discuss some budget issues with the items that y'all want presented, we'll bring this item back on August 1st, and by tabling it until August 1st, less than 2 weeks, we perhaps could save the district $10,000, and that's what it's about.
Okay,
we'll
I didn't hear that.
Okay, well, I'm sorry I didn't share it. I apologize for that.
If we want to save money, because like I said, you know, it's, you know, there's a lot of times that I don't like some of the things, but I feel like, hey, the majority rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chavita. Let's go on ahead. We are pulling G2, the issue with Templeton demographics. Do we have a motion to approve the other items on the consent agenda? Mr. Overfelt, second by Mr. Chavita. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, motion carries. Then we'll move to G2, consideration to approve the contract over $5,000 and purchase order over $25,000 to Templeton Demographics in the amount of $28,000 for demographic services. All those, is there a motion to approve the item? Mr. Overfelt, second by Mr. Smith. Any further discussion? All in favor? Four, against? Two? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we would like to acknowledge those who have made donations to our district. Mr. Overfelt, would you please be so kind as to read those?
Yes.
Thank you.
Life Touch National School Studios, $17 to Delro Freshman. Pro Color, $702 to Dr. Fermin Calderon. The San Antonio Symphony, $100 to Buena Vista Elementary Choral Music. Target, take charge of education, $12.57 to San Felipe Memorial Middle School. Texas Department of Health Services, $500, to Garfield. Adrian Joseph Garcia, $2,300 to Del Rio Middle School Queens Palm Team. Deanna Alcala, $420 to Del Rio Middle School Palm Team. Also to the Palm Team, Guadalupe Gomez, $1,040. And Veronica Zambrano, $1,235 to the Palm team as well at Del Rio Middle School. And I think that was it this month. Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to number 10, and that's consideration to approve a TASB delegate and alternate. We no longer have a TASB delegate and an alternate, so this is the time to volunteer, or I do have suggestions for who I believe would be great as a delegate and also an alternate. Do we have any volunteers? I know Mr. Mesa cannot. He represents us at a higher level. Thank you, Mr. Mesa. I think Josh Overfelt would be great at being the TASB delegate, and he didn't volunteer, but I do think it would be, he'd do great for us.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate that. And this is at the big Tessa TASB?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Only for this year.
Only for this year. Well, that's all we're asking for.
Okay.
And then as an alternate, I thought Diana Gonzalez would be great as an alternate to,
You got it.
especially since she helped us out with that resolution last month, I believe it was. I think that'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
May I say something, sister?
yes, sir,
I just want to say it's imperative
that we have a
that
voice.
someone be there. If, again, the delegate cannot make it, the alternate needs to be there. But I just communicate on that day, and I just want to make sure that our delegate is there.
So we
It's a
have
very
that
easy
commitment.
thing. It's not difficult at all. So don't worry about it.
I think I can do it.
So I would like to make the motion to approve Mr. Josh Overfelt as our delegate and Ms. Diana Gonzalez as our alternate. Second, Mr. Chavita. All those in favor? Unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you both for volunteering. I'm sure you will do a great job.
Yes.
Only for 1 year. Facilities and operations, consideration to approve the request for qualification 17-01, architectural Services for minor projects, Mr. Carrera.
Madam President, Dr. Rios, members of the board, we had an RFQ 1701 for architects for minor projects. We sent it out to 7 and received 4 bids back. And those 4 were John S. Graves and Associates Incorporated out of Uvalde, PBK Architects Incorporated out of Houston, Texas, Jorge Peña Architects Incorporated out of San Antonio, Texas, and Kissling Architects of Bulverde, Texas.
Any questions?
Maybe a couple.
Mr. Smith?
The group that we've been working with for the CTE site, which one is that?
PBK.
PBK.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and who did we work with for the downtown building?
For
Alvidres.
the SPC, the student,
Yeah.
that is Alvidres Architects.
Okay, so you're just talking about using the same people again for possible.
He was not on this bid, and the only new one that I see that I haven't seen is that Kissling Architects.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine.
But Alvidres did not, he's not one of them.
No problem.
All right, recommendation?
It is a recommendation of the administration that the proposal be awarded to John S. Graves and Associates, PBK Architects, Jorge Peña Architects, and Kissling Architects, and recommend the Board of Trustees to approve the superintendent to negotiate a contract for a fair and reasonable price effective immediately.
We've heard the recommendation. Do we have a motion? Mr. Overfelt, second by Mr. Chavira. All those in favor? 5 against, 1, motion carries. Thank you. 13 is Business and Finance, consideration to approve the submittal of grant applications to expand the Career and Technical Education Extracurricular Robotics Program. Mr. Roger Gonzalez.
Good evening, Mr. Martinez Lozano, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. Career and Technical Education is requesting approval to apply for any grant as it relates to robotics competition for the 2016-2017 school year. The grants have a very limited time, from 2 to 3 weeks to apply. The grants could include, but not limited to, U.S. First, and FIRST stands for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology, First in Texas, the Texas Workforce Commission, the Time Warner Cable, and Walmart. The grant will allow the teams to use these funds for allowable expenses in accordance with the grant requirements, such as tournament registration, fees, robotics kits, robot parts, and field elements. During the 2015-2016 school year, the robotics teams received over $14,800 in grant money towards these registration fees and robotics parts.
Any questions for Mr. Gonzalez? The recommendation, please.
It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the submittal of applications to U.S. First, First in Texas, the Texas Workforce Commission, Time Warner Cable, and Walmart, and other related robotics grants to expand the Career and Technical Extracurricular Robotics Program.
We have heard the recommendation. Do we have a motion? Mr. Chavira, second by Ms. Gonzalez. All those in favor? Unanimous, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Consideration to approve for the superintendent to sign the agreement with Texas Municipal League, TML, multi-state for settlement of subrogation liens in accordance to Chapter 140. Ms. Yanakani Valdez.
Good evening, Ms. Lozano, Dr. Rios, board members. TML is our third-party administrator for our health insurance plan. And our current interlogo, which was approved May of 2012, does not include the language that has already been established by Chapter 140. This language is for the recovery of medical cost, and it dictates the formula to settle a subrogation. The current process that we use is if there is a subrogation to be settled, TML submits a request to our office for review. There's nothing that we can change. It's simply their form of communication. Once we indicate that we received that communication, they move forward, and so that is the only reason, or I'm sorry, so there was several attorneys that brought it to TML's attention that that current process causes a delay. For example, if we receive the email on Friday and we don't see it till Monday or Tuesday, we've already caused a 3-day delay just by simply saying that we received the email. We've already caused a 3-day delay in the process where Chapter 140 already establishes all the formulas, and we do not have any say-so as to any changes on that subrogation. So you're simply asking for the superintendent to be able to sign this letter that would update our interlocal agreement in order to include the language in our current interlocal to simply follow the process that is already set in Chapter 140.
Any questions? The recommendation, please.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve for the superintendent to sign the agreement with Texas Municipal League, TML, Multistate, for settlement of subrogation liens in accordance to Chapter 140.
We have heard the recommendation. Do we have a motion? Mr. Overfelt, second by myself. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you. Human Resources and Student Services, consideration to approve the Student Code of Conduct for adoption of the 2016-2017 Student Parent Handbook. Dr. Patricia McNamara.
Good evening, President Martinez-Lozano, members of the board, and Dr. Rios. Last month, we provided the Board of Trustees with a student handbook for your review, and we took the edits that you provided to us in open session and went ahead and incorporated those in the new revised document that was provided to you last week. Just as a reminder, this document has been reviewed by our school attorney, by the superintendent's cabinet, and campus staff. And additionally, again, as I just mentioned, we took all the suggestions that had been provided to the Student Services Department and incorporated those per your guidance, and came up with our final product. So everyone did receive the bound copy. The corrections were made in yellow, and any deletions were made in red for your convenience in reviewing the document.
Any questions? Mr. Overfelt has a question.
Back to the random drug testing,
Yes, sir.
134. I know the big hangup last time was 1, 2, 3 chances, et cetera. And I see it's all been taken out there. And then it talks about, if you participate or park on school property, you'll have to sign that document that says you will submit to it. And then it drops down, and the last thing is random drug testing in no way replaces. So is it an FNF local, because I was trying to find it online right now, is it an FNF local that spells out specifically what happens when you test positive?
Yes, Mr. Overfelt, and we talked to the policy committee last week and mentioned that in order to change that 1, 2, and 3, we'd have to review the policy and change it, and that is one of the items that the policy committee will be discussing.
Okay. Yeah, I apologize for not being able to be here for that, so, okay, that's just all I wanted to know.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Recommendation, please.
Yes, ma'am. It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the Student Code of Conduct for the inclusion in the 2016-17 Student Parent Handbook as presented this evening.
We've heard the recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve? Mr. Chavita, second by Mr. Overfelt. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, motion carries, and thank you very much for making those changes. Okay, moving on to closed session.
It's only 7:40.
It's like, that was fast, I'm confused. Okay, it's July 18th, 2016. As Mr. Overfelt just said, it's only 7:40. The Board of Trustees will recess this open session and convene in a closed meeting in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, Subchapter D and E. We're able to do this under Sections 551.071 through 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, and 551.084. Pursuant to personnel or to hear complaints against personnel, and 551.071, private consultation with the board's attorney. Number one, discussion of personnel report to include the following: new hires, district vacancies, retirements, resignations, reassignments. Number two, discussion of salary adjustments to include but not limited to the following justifications: service credit, master's degree, and stipends. All final votes and actions or decisions will be taken in open session. We are now in closed session. Thank you. Okay, it's July 18th, 2016 at 8:20 p.m. The Board of Trustees will now reconvene in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, Subchapter D and E. No action was taken in closed session. We'll begin with the consideration to approve the personnel report to include the following: new hires, district vacancies, retirements, resignations. Dr. McNamara.
President Martinez-Lozano, members of the board, and Dr. Rios, it is the recommendation of the administration that Ms. Jessie Galindo be our new assistant athletic trainer at Del Rio High School.
Heard the recommendation. Do we have a motion? Mr. Overfelt, second by Mr. Chavita. Oh, I didn't see Ken. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous, motion carries.
Thank you.
Yeah. One comment on that?
Absolutely. Mr. Overfelt would like to add a comment.
Congratulations, Ms. Galindo. Welcome home.
Oh, that's exciting. Congratulations and thanks for joining the family. B, consideration to approve salary adjustments. We didn't have any, correct? All right, we'll just skip that. On to 18, superintendent's report. There were no items, however. Dr. Rios?
Yeah, we're not anticipating any items, and sincerely, we regret that we're even having to talk about this, but with the passing of Ms. Murayra, we have to make some decisions for the high school. And we're going to postpone those decisions for the long term, but we are going to make some recommendations for an interim principal at the high school to help get the year started and see how we can progress. And at this time, I recommend that the board approve Dr. Jose Perez as interim high school principal.
We've heard the recommendation. Do we have a motion? Mr. Chavita, second by Mr. Overfelt. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous, motion carries.
Madam President, members of the board, with your approval, that creates also a temporary vacancy at Chavita Elementary. I would like to recommend Ms. Griselda Grace Westlake as interim principal at Chavita Elementary.
We've heard the recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve? Mr. Overfelt, second by Mr. Chavita. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous, motion carries. Last on our agenda is adjournment. Do we have a motion? Mr. Overfelt motion, second by Mr. Chavita. Any discussion? Any argument? All in favor? Unanimous motion carries. Good night. Thank you.